hand it over to Neil Crompton in commentary. Good afternoon, Crompo.
Afternoon to you, Jess. Good afternoon, everybody. Getting set now for the first of our two practice sessions, the OTR SuperSprint races 21-22, round 10, the Virgin Australia Supercars Championship. 120 kilometres of racing tomorrow and then 200 kilometres on Sunday, 24 and 41 laps respectively. And it's our third and fourth races at this beautiful, effectively still brand new venue. Everybody's jumped over the South Australian border to jump on those Virgin 737s and come to this venue and participate in what's going to be some vigorous racing again this weekend. This is our layout. High levels of complexity for this racetrack. It's just under 5 kilometres around here, and all of the drivers will tell you that it takes quite a bit of mastering, particularly on a day like today where that run into turn one is heavily buffeted by a substantial, generally northerly breeze. And then there's a couple of wild places around this racetrack. Turn 5 is one of them. We've seen drivers already today in the additional practice session early on making mistakes. Running wide at 6 is easily done, but it is a passing opportunity. Can sneak down the inside here at turn 10. And from this point, you start the wind back towards the pit straight and the start-finish area. Look at these speeds also. Very high speeds on the straights, more than 200 odd kilometres an hour. Into 13, up to 14 is an uphill run, double left-hander through 14 and 15. A lot of undulation in this racetrack, and there's been hundreds of millions of dollars invested in this facility by Sam Shaheen. And the bend is a remarkable place, and there are many different circuit options, and this particular one is 4.95 kilometres. We'll pay particular attention to the sectors in this session, and then our second session later on this afternoon effectively forms a part of qualifying. Now, if you're just joining the coverage and you want to come up to speed with what happened here last year, lap record, Win Cup. Qualifying record, Win Cup. Practice record, Shane Van Gisbergen. When you stop and look at the results last year, it was also heavily laden in favour of the Red Bull Holden racing team. Many teams had battles trying to get those Dunlop tyres to work on this racetrack. That's the real key to this place. Very smooth surface, pretty generally easy on brakes, relatively easy on tyres because they don't wear. But the problem is saying they don't wear sounds all fine and dandy, but they also don't make a lot of temperature and they don't make it evenly across the tyre. So there's a real genuine setup challenge at this racetrack. And there are a couple of subplots in the story again this weekend as well. We've expanded the field by a couple of cars. We've got some wild cards out there. Thomas Randall is in the field, and he just proved his credentials, and there he is in car number 66 rolling out the back end of the lane at the moment to be the fastest driver in that session early on. Jack Smith's also making an appearance as a wild card, which he's done earlier on. And there's some livery changes as well, and as always there's a pile of news in and around the Supercars universe. We're not very far away from the Pertec Enduro Cup coming up later in the year, so co-drivers had a hit out earlier in the day. And look out the screen of Shane Van Gisbergen's car, who was the very first winner on this pavement last year on Saturday. Looks fantastic out there. Clear blue sky. We're in the mid-teens at the moment, but the wind chill is significant, and the breeze, and it's fluctuating between a northeasterly and a northwesterly constantly at the moment, is quite a challenge. Not only because it changes your braking reference into the first corner, but it also disturbs the car as a crosswind or as a tailwind in a number of places as well. Chaz Mostert was a reporter for us earlier in the day. Now he's back in his customary environment inside the Super Cheap Auto Ford Mustang. He had a real battle on his hands last year. Mark Scopes made it back into the commentary box. I spoke to Cam Waters as you get settled here, Mark, and asked him whether or not Michael Caruso had any positive feedback on the car, and the question is going to be balance and tyres again this weekend. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Neil. Yeah, Michael Caruso did a good job, didn't he, to be second behind young Thomas Randall. And we've been covering his performance. Young Thomas is only 23 years of age, and what a great job he did to be on top. Garth Tander was third, but Michael Caruso, I think those couple of runs with Gary Rogers Motorsport will have helped him. But he has said, Neil, that the driving style is quite different in terms of how you get the best from a Tickford engineered car. It's very similar even in Falcon days in the way they get around the middle of the corner.
Sorry to interrupt, Mark. I just intercepted a message from Van Gisbergen that said that he had a splitter vibration on the run into turn one. Now, you got very high speed in the run there as we look at Cam's footwork around here. When we were riding earlier in the day with Jonathan Webb in the Techno entry for truck assist, we saw evidence of it. In fact, we did the wild ride into turn one of the fluttering. A lot of air pressure and disturbance on the front of the car down there. So keep a note of that. So Van Gisbergen just reporting that behaviour. That'll also be to do not necessarily with structure, but possibly ride height down there.
And just there, where Cam ran a little bit wide, Craig Lowndes was just saying that the wind, because it's roughly, what, 35 kilometres an hour, maybe even a bit more sometimes, gusting. What do you got there? 35. But it actually makes the nose of the car turn in down that hill. So it actually makes a balance change halfway down there, as we see Anton De Pasquale touring the grass in that zone.
11th in the championship at the moment.
Yes.
And he's asking whether or not they want to have a look at the car, so there'll be a lot of dust and debris. That's the very spot that you were just describing, and he's bowled it wide down there off the line. Came off the apex of the turn and he's caught it easily, but then he's got his foot well clamped on the brake there. Here it is from on board. Let's watch, look, listen and learn. Ooh, pretty violent yaw in the car, and then there's nothing there in the way of gutters or dramas, but they'll have a good look at it. His engineer's on the right. Barry Ryan in the background. I had the pleasure of his company on the Monday after Queensland Raceway, doing some laps at Paul Morris's facility in Queensland. So Anton played tutor and I was the student. It was good fun. So I might need to get some of those notes out and say, hang on, mate, what just happened out there then? There's Barry Ryan. And it was good fun. Macaulay Jones has jumped up into second. 1 or 2 galahs on the racetrack, 1 or 2 galahs in the commentary box. Coulthard, Jones, McLaughlin, 51.4 is the fastest time so far. We got into the 49s in that session earlier on today, 49.9, and relative to the form that's been done here previously, the lap record actually belongs to Jamie Whincup in a 50.5. Quality records of 48.6. You'd probably say, and it would have been a decent indicative run from Thomas on good tyres in that previous session, that year on year the track might be a little bit quicker. Greg Murphy had the pleasure of driving car 12.
Here we go.
This is looking awkward between Fabian Coulthard and Shane Van Gisbergen. Don't know whether Shane just didn't spot him there or there's more to the story. Greg had the pleasure of driving cars 12 and 17. It's a rarity to be able to get into both cars in the team in the one session.
Mid-corner exit understeer. Things real bad.
So there's the debrief from Shane Van Gisbergen. So it doesn't sound like he's overly happy in the saddle there at the moment. Thomas Randall's gone to the top again. Chaz Mostert's slotted in behind him. So Thomas Randall also bowling wide at turn 5. We saw a lot of that last year. Now this time round at turn 5, you're going to have a substantial tailwind through there. So trying to commit to getting through there flat or somewhere thereabouts is going to be pretty hard. That looks like hard work as well. Macaulay Jones, I came out to the circuit with him yesterday from Adelaide. Now what's happened here? This is Fabian just trying to wind his way around Shane Van Gisbergen, who's probably on the radio at this point because he wasn't too happy with the behaviour of the car. I suspect that Shane didn't realise he was there.
Yeah, I think you're right. But Fabian, he probably wouldn't be very happy with how that rolled out.
So we're only 6 minutes and 57 official seconds into the session, and there's already plenty going on out there. There's people finding the limits very quickly. This is car number 22, which this weekend, by the way, will carry that Eagle Fuels livery on the side of it. And at Walkinshaw Andretti United in the recent past, they've been rotating the livery on their cars in relation to the various distributors around the country. And this weekend, James has the honour as we jump on board, look over his left shoulder in car number 22. A lot of throttle dancing going on down the hill here.
It's an awkward corner, isn't it? So many apexes. We often talk about corners with an entry and an exit apex, but it basically had 3 or 4 points of contact on the inside.
And that car, in the 300 metres that we've looked at it, the minute James is turning it, going down, and he just did it again then, the minute he turns and changes direction, the back of the car is instantly disturbed, upset and sliding. So it's pitching over its nose and just sliding in the rear. It's just done it again.
Yep.
Moved it up into 3rd gear now. It's just done it again. So it's a little bit nervous to drive. It's a bit pinned on the front at the moment. And that's the stuff that they'll look at in detail when they get into the debrief. not too bad where you get down to those low speeds down there, which is, that one was what?
17.
17, so second last corner, yeah.
So if you're being paid by wheel movement, James Courtney is on for a very good day.
Be wealthy by the end of the day. Rick Kelly, who was fast here on Saturday last year, bowling wide as well in the Castrol entry. Yeah, he was busy.
Very busy.
And turnbuckles for wrists.
Remember, these cars were great here last year, and I'm pretty interested to see how they roll out with that little aero change on this car. Slightly more rear downforce. Centre of pressure moved towards the back of the car, which should help it in terms of its rear stability and the way the car flows. But remember, Caruso and Rick Kelly, who battled each other on the Saturday, they finished on the podium second and third. So they had form here last year. Now, the interesting thing Thomas Randall has done the fastest time, he's at the top there on a 51.05, and all his family should take a big photo of that time shared at the moment because there's some superstars further down the order. But the interesting one for me is Van Gisbergen, who is 18th, reporting how bad that car is when Garth Tander, so Van Gisbergen has done a 52.8 and Garth Tander did a 50.3. So he's 2 and a bit seconds, 2.5 seconds faster, and thought the car was okay. So what tyre?
Well, I was about to say, it might be tyres, or it could be individual preferences in setup, or maybe they tweaked it after that session. And one of the things that I picked up with a few of them is that it doesn't take much of a ticker in one direction or another to disturb the cars at this racetrack. So we go back to Thomas Randall in car number 66 this weekend. And I covered this off a bit earlier in the day, Mark, after you left in the additional driver practice session to go back to the host area. But when you look at the credentials for this guy, it's really impressive. And so it comes as no shock that he's doing very well out there, as you detailed before. He's 23 years of age. And for those that are wondering, Scandia manufactures wood and gas fire stoves, and they've been part of the Tickford Racing organisation for a while on some of the other cars, and the opportunity to step up and have the primary position on this car, and they've presented the car beautifully this weekend, Brianna. Yeah,
and I just quickly spoke to Tim Edwards. He was being a little bit coy with me in terms of the tyres that Thomas is currently on. They are the tyres from the previous session. He said they were old, but then he quickly corrected that and said they are mid-life, but they are the same tyres that he was running in that previous co-driver session.
Thanks for the update, Brianna. McLaughlin's on a good lap here at the moment. Fastest we've seen in the 2 initial sectors of the racetrack is in the final sector now. It's not an easy racetrack to find your way around as a driver, and it's quite difficult as a commentator too, because you're not 100% sure when there's just some black road and green grass around it exactly where they are. So it takes me a moment just to come up to speed. We are at turn 18 now.
We are.
Let's count them.
So what's this do? Fastest of the weekend. 49.79, fastest so far. Remember, 49.9 was Thomas Randall in the previous session. And remember this, and we've made the point a lot so far this weekend, that this was the bogey round of 2018 for Scott McLaughlin and Ludo Lacroix in terms of how the Falcon of last year behaved and didn't perform. It took them a long time to get their brain around.
And then for added pain, they had that gearing drama as well. David Reynolds on screen here. What's he look like after his first blast? Down to 12th at the moment, sandwiched between Lee Holdsworth and Tim Slade. And his teammate, Anton's down in 22nd, so that suggests that both of those have got a bit of work to do. The reason I say that is generally your first blast, that sets the tone. Now you know what kind of a weekend you're generally in for, give or take.
Yeah. I think the thing that's a little weird here, Neil, is that because the grip level's so low, it's sort of a bit like driving the car in the wet. You know, the way that you approach it, you've got to almost underdrive it. If you try to overdrive it, you make too many mistakes. You run into the corner too deep. Even at a place like that where 17's more than 90 degrees, it's really easy to overrun the corner.
So I just went back and had a bit of a look, Mark, at the combined practice, for example, last year, because I wanted to see for Scott McLaughlin's sake where they sit in the scale. So you go back and look at car number 17 last year, did 50.3, and he's just done a 49.7. So incrementally, there's a chunk, but they were anything but flash last year. Andrew?
Luke Yordan, there's so much talk in this sport about what the car feels like when it rolls out of the truck. This weekend, you got to feel that. What was the number 9 like that Dave Reynolds is driving?
Yeah, we had a fair bit of understeer in my session, and now he's complaining about totally the opposite. So we think the track's changed. Obviously, the Carrera Cup cars are out before our session, so that always helps the circuit. So I don't even he's matched my time yet, which is unusual. So boys are making some changes. Like I said, it's totally the opposite to how the car was for me. So something's changed. It can only be the rubber on the track, I guess.
So does that mean you left the car what it was like when you drove it, or did they make some changes based on that understeer and now it's too far the other way?
Yeah, exactly right, mate. So yeah, it was too pushy. It obviously made some changes, a little bit of ride height, things like that. So obviously it's tipped it over the edge.
Yep. Sounds like it's in a fine window. A bit of work ahead of you guys. Thanks, Luke.
Yep, no worries.
So Luke Yordan will be in action in the Pertec Enduro Cup commencing Bathurst in October, and he'll be alongside David Reynolds, and they'll be looking to avenge their trauma there last year. Car number 55 is on screen here at the moment, sitting in 4th, 1 minute 51.1. Win Cup, meantime, has just moved up 8 spots into 11th. While the interview was going on, Mark and I had a short, sharp interview, wondering out loud whether or not the wind or the UV or tweaks, in fairness, like Luke just explained, is having a big impact. I suggest tweaks will be a big part of it too.
And the Porsche tyre. So that Porsche tyre played a big role. I think you'll find that Luke Yordan's point there around the way the Michelin tyre works, and often we get quite a big yield if the supercars run right off the back of a Porsche Cup practice session, and that was certainly the case for the co-driver session. Murph?
I've got a lot more sympathy now, guys, for everyone that's out there at the moment trying to tune these cars, because it's a tricky racetrack to pick up. And I was just talking and looking in on James Courtney's car. You guys were commenting before about how that was looking, and he was doing a lot of steering inputs. They made some damper change, and a damper change only damper clicker changes to the rear of that car for James Courtney. So it'll be interesting to see if that does look better from some in-car footage that we might get, if that has made the improvement or not. But it is such a hard place. Do you ever reckon you could have a perfect car around here? I don't reckon it'd be possible.
No. Greg?
Yeah.
You ready to go?
Yep. Happy birthday to you.
I really wish I hadn't keyed in.
To you.
That's enough.
Thank you very much. You're very kind. I feel great being 40. I feel great.
Do you?
Yeah, being 40.
40.
Yeah.
Ish.
You're obviously not counting too well.
Yeah, thanks.
Cut him in half and count the rings.
Speak to the hand.
Oops.
How was your spin from yesterday too? That was great, similar to that one.
I'm never going to live that one down, am I? That one's never going to.
That was great.
So it was a wild moment.
I was trying to be serious, and now, yeah, out the window.
Thank you, Greg. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Greg.
Did get mentioned earlier in the day, and I forgot to capitalise, but I think we just did. All right, back to business. It is practice. It will get very serious as the day progresses. Now, this car was off the road in the grass a little bit earlier in the hands of Jonathan Webb. He's allowed to do that because he owns it. But for Jack LeBrock, that's a wilder moment. He doesn't own it. He'll have to probably do a bit of explanation. So he's fallen off the road there. There's a lot of instability in cars out there in these early runs.
Gee, he shows a bit of Greg Murphy car control there with that little lazy slide. And Courtney's had a massive off down in that area we're just speaking of. He's a long way off the road. That is a long way off the road. This is this section that's really complex. We saw Anton off there before, and that is miles off. In fact, it's gone on to the other link road on the next track.
Hell,
Have a look at this.
he's come down the hill at a fair clip.
He's out of control for a couple of 100 metres.
Those tyres might need a look.
Well, you know that little thing that Murph was talking about with the rear click of the shock absorber? I don't reckon it worked.
So Matt Nilsson, or Teco, looking in the garage and wondering what that was all about. So they've been in search of performance in the recent past. It's been pretty tough just trying to find the sweet spot in that car. Meantime, Jack Smith's on screen here at the moment. Wildcard this weekend, one of a couple of additional entries. And he is sitting in 19th position, and he's done a 52.5. This is a Brad Jones Racing entry.
It's his 4th wildcard, isn't it, this time?
Yes.
Of the year?
Tasmania, Winton, Darwin, 1, 2, 3. Tailem Bend, 4. Yes.
You're counting as well as Greg.
That's going as well as it does with Gregory. So Yeah, and he's banking valuable experience here at the moment. So Fabian Coulthard also having a battle on his hands here at the moment.
When we were designing this corner at the top of the hill, I used to call it at the beginning the hero corner, but it's not turning into that at the moment. Everyone having a massive amount of trouble as you crest the rise. So as you approach that part of the track, you're doing roughly 200 kilometres an hour, and you've got to take some speed off it as you go down the hill to about 180k. So as the car slides, you try to take about 20 kilometres an hour out of it, and they haven't been able to arrest the speed. And clearly, for 4 or 5 of our competitors, big offs in that zone. Now, Craig Lowndes, as we said before, he was talking about that wind direction playing a role. That's also buffeting. That front spoiler on that car is buffeting. It's the first time I've seen a Mustang front spoiler buffet all year. Maybe that little bump in that zone's worse than last year too.
There is a little crease down there, isn't there? So Milwaukee Racing, and for Will Davison, who'll pair up with his brother later in the year in the Pertec Enduro Cup. A good run for him at Queensland Raceway. Scott Pye's off the road as well. Andrew, can you shed any light?
I'm trying to shed some light here. What I am doing is running around talking to the co-drivers. I found Garth Tander, mate. We spoke to you at the end of your session before. You were talking about nervousness or oversteer in the car. Shane's just said he's got the complete opposite. Is that change off the back of your feedback?
I don't know. I hope not. Yeah, look, we made a change to the car, so we're just going through a process now of understanding the change. So the problem that I've got when I jump in this car is I don't know what this car felt like when they were here last year. So the feedback I give them is only relevant to another car from another team. So at the moment, it's not impossible, but difficult to correlate the feedback between Shane and I. Once we've been everywhere together, then it becomes much, much easier. So when I think the car's good, it might not be what Shane's likes, and vice versa.
So one thing that has been a common thread between the two of you is the splitter flap, or the flapping in the front of the car. It looks like they've just changed that there. Is that to improve that, or are you looking for something different out of the front of the car?
AJ, you're not going to change it and try and make it worse. Yeah, look, we both it's right at the end of the front straight, and it's the tiniest amount of movement in the front splitter, and we both reported the same thing. So I think they've whacked a different splitter on to try something different, just with different the way it's made. I think it's probably a little bit different, but yeah, I don't know the difference, but they've put a different one on, so see what he says.
Thanks, Garth.
Right, cheers.
So work going on in the background there for car number 97 for Shane Van Gisbergen, and Garth will pair up with him later in the year at the Pertec Enduro Cup. So he's sitting in 24th at the moment, Shane Van Gisbergen, and from almost the moment the car rolled out, he was immediately unhappy. Talked about vibration in the front of the car, and then started to talk about a lack of balance, and miles away from an indicative time. So it'll be a curiosity. This is his teammate at the moment. He's sitting in 15th position, who last year had a couple of pole positions and got on the podium, and probably would have on the Saturday as well had he not been caught in the double stack.
So if you're going to look at last year and the struggles that Ford had overall, and you look at the current timesheet with 5 Mustangs at the pointy end, you would think that they've been able to make those cars better.
It was a wild moment also.
It was, wasn't it?
David Reynolds, as he came off 17, wagged the tail. No, it wasn't 17. Yeah. I'll go back to square one, go back to my map reading skills here. It's 13. But that car doesn't look entirely happy either. Yes, it's strange, isn't it? You know, this is a really difficult place to be able to get the car nicely balanced.
But wouldn't you say, given the track surface grip being low, that this is a highly aero-sensitive racetrack? It's got to be, because it could be like driving in the wet. So anything you can do to clamp the thing on the ground harder has got to work.
Yeah, the characteristics of the place are that you're not doing some of the things that we do see supercars doing, which are these wild rides over curves. There's none of that going on here.
Yep.
Garth's in conversation now with Shane, who, by the way, has been to Korea since we last saw him and had success for the 888 GT team. He's got Pye off the road as well. So he went to South Korea for the track that we saw. They ran Formula 1 there for a little while and had a class win. And the next event for him, which is later on in September, will be at Shanghai, the track up in China.
Whoa, that's another massive moment.
Wow,
how many cars have been off there? Huh?
A
Must
lot.
have been, what, 8? So a lot of cars down there, and they're going fast, because we're just saying that that part of the sort of secondary aspect of that apex is roughly 180 kilometres an hour. You turn in right here at about 200k. brakes, balance. McLaughlin's got that car working nicely, flowing nicely. So McLaughlin, Mostert, Waters, Davison, Randall. First of the Holdens is Nick Percat. Fabian Coulthard, Scott Pye, Lee Holdsworth, Anton Pasquale. That's the car at 10. There's a lot of very, very big names that are further down the order. David Reynolds is 13th. James Courtney, 14th. Wingcup, 15. Mark Winterbottom, 22nd. Rick Kelly, who was so good here last year, is 21st. Shane Van Gisbergen, of the really big names, is currently down in 24th in the pit area, as we just showed you. Now, in terms of this lap, he's not far away. In fact, this is almost going to replicate the lap that he did earlier. He's done almost exactly the same number, 7/10 thousandths of a second in the first sector, nothing in the next.
It looked very lively, though, in the 14-15 complex. So 50.1 for him on that lap, so not too far away. But he was chasing it on in that mid-sector, so sliding is generally the enemy of the stopwatch. Back in the garage at Brad Jones Racing, and that's Nick Percat. And where is he sitting at the moment? He's 6th. He's actually the best of the Holdens. Thomas Randall also back in the garage. There's about a third of the cars in the field that are back in debrief at the moment, just contemplating the next round of changes.
Car looks good, doesn't it?
Dave Patterson's the engineer that was just walking backwards from the car. It's been beautifully presented.
He used to work with you, Dave Patterson, did he?
And he survived to tell the tale.
Is he still seeing a counsellor, or
probably?
You have 5 here, we've got 5 minutes. That's
a good point. Let's think about the time remaining in the session. So it's just under 5 minutes now, moving along. And we'll see what happens when everybody gets on to something in the way of a better time. Remember, the next time that the cars come out, it will be for practice number 2, which effectively forms a part of qualifying, because the elimination qualifying process will be used again this weekend. So they've done a lot of work around the front of this car.
That's a big geometry change by the look of that. That's not a little change. Now, Craig Lowndes just made the point that you never see Shane with that sort of visor. So he's got a really dark visor on, and maybe that's because the dirt, or I don't really know why Shane's changed policy there. We'll work that one out. We'll ask him as the weekend goes on. Got to be a reason.
So outstanding run on Saturday. Last time out, Queensland Raceway for this man, for Will Davison, but he joins the Green Grass Club at Tailem Bend. There's been a few.
Same spot.
And qualified third, second row of the grid on Saturday, and came home second for the first podium for Phil Munday. And that was fantastic to see for Milwaukee Racing.
How was your form? You were talking to Phil on FaceTime.
Yeah, it was wild, wasn't it? I think it's always, everybody in the paddock's always pleased to see, you know, somebody like that who's invested significant amounts of time, money and energy in the supercars business get a yield. And, you know, he was tickled pink, obviously, and it's wonderful to see for Will as well, you know, who's obviously a senior competitor now. He's got a very impressive CV. And there are times for drivers where they wonder whether they got up one morning and accidentally washed some ability off in the shower and didn't realise it. But all it is it's a reconfirmation that if you can get everything right at all the right times, you can well and truly be effective. And I think that's an important message for all the drivers in the field on occasion, that it's just so technical. And when those good, sweet shots come along every now and again, it just validates, and you think, oh, thank goodness for that.
That's right. It has been a very good season for him. And Phil wasn't actually at the race meeting when they finished on the podium, but we were able to get him on FaceTime. That was quite a good reaction and a good reward for their effort at Milwaukee Racing. Tim Slade's on a good lap here, Croppo. In fact, he's done the fastest sector 2 of all competitors in this session so far. Andrew?
Yeah, well, Mark, I heard you just ask the question about Shane Van Gisbergen's visor. So I ran into Triple Eight, spoke to Mark Dutton. He said, I didn't actually notice that he's running a visor this weekend. So I went to Gartan and he said, can you shed some light on it? And he said, well, for a little while, I've been saying to Shane, hey, Shane, you need to get rid of that dodgy visor you're running and actually run a full visor. He's now just stuck his head in the window and said to him, the full visor's not working for you, mate. Put the other one back on. So there's no science behind it, boys.
All right. It's a style thing, perhaps. Jack Smith's just moved up into 7th, by the way. And Tim Slade on screen has moved up into 2nd with the fastest middle sector. And the middle sector is the real challenge at this racetrack. So they've got that car settled down, remembering that originally an Adelaide boy. 0.3 of a second is the margin between McLaughlin and Slade now as we go back to Lee Holdsworth. who's also been buoyant in his performances in the recent past.
It's quite a tough corner, that one, where they finished. We saw an issue there for Jonathan Webb in the co-driver session, Croppo, on that little straight before turn 13. But it's a difficult exit to turn 12. It sort of almost encourages you to use more of the exit curb, and then they battle to straighten the car back up and get it back online. So there's some real tricks, and you were saying earlier about car placement. It's a place that's really critical of that, isn't it, in terms of just getting the right trajectory, especially at turn-in.
1 minute remaining in the session, thereabouts. McLaughlin over Slade, Mostert, Waters, Davison. High, Randall, Smith, Percat, Coulthard. That's the 10. Rick Kelly's just outside. It will shuffle most likely. There you go. Holdsworth just came up into third position, up 9 spots in the Botlow Ford Mustang. As everybody puts their best foot forward on a decent set of tyres towards the end of the session. So Van Gisbergen's done a personal best, which wouldn't have been hard based on today's early numbers in the first sector. So he's on a lively lap at the moment in car number 97. He's drifted down to 25th position now. Tom Randall's just come up into 4th on a 50.3, and Jamie Whincup off the road now, joining that long list of drivers who've had a battle on their hands this afternoon.
And that's that spot. That's the exit of turn 12. It's really difficult to get that right. A lot of dust and dirt as Dave Reynolds tries to get onto the main straight with a reasonable run. He comes up 11 spots, up to 5th. So McLaughlin, Slade, Holdsworth, Randall, great job. David Reynolds, Mostert, Cam Waters, Will Davison, Scott Pye, and Jack Smith. Good job in 10th. So the two wildcards, Macaulay Jones now comes up 9 spots to 6. So that's a really good job. Van Gisbergen right at the end with a 51.2 has come up to 11th. So good for them to get a lap at the end of the session.
But not a lot of data to play with, really. Essentially just a lap. Shane did some GT racing here a while ago, so he's well familiar with the racetrack layout and had success here last year. But that doesn't give them a lot to play with, but at least they've got something now to look at when they get back into the garage. Back at Cam Waters now, and he's sitting in 8th position with a personal best in the first sector. They're all chasing McLaughlin on a 9.7.
It's not a bad lap. In fact, it's going to put him up, I would think, if he doesn't make a mistake. It's very easy to overrun the second last corner, remembering that it's got a substantial tailwind when you head in this direction.
So really everything from turn 7 to essentially turn 16, which is in that pretty much that middle chunk of the track. It's hard yards out there at the moment. And probably what the great compromise is there is if you start making it good there, it'll disturb it in some of the other places as well. So you're going to have to figure out where the compromise is best made. Moving up into 5th place now, Cam Waters, up 3 spots. He's done a 50.3. Mostert has drifted down to 8th with a little bit of the last-minute flurrying that's going on out there at the moment speed-wise. Is there a gain for him? No, he was actually down the order a bit. Will Davison just came up into 6th. James Courtney up 8 spots into 10th, so they must have made decent ground there. Fabian's come up into 14th. Nick Percat moving down to 15th as a result of that. So McLaughlin on screen, 1/3 of a second faster than Tim Slade. Look at that beautiful sky in the background. It is a gorgeous day. If you can get out of the wind at the moment, it's beautiful out there. But boy, when that wind chill kicks in, makes it pretty tricky conditions out there. Thomas Randall once again for the second successive session, looking really impressive. He's almost ended up being the best of the Tickford entries. Nice work. So McLaughlin, Slade, Holdsworth, Randall, Waters, Davison, Reynolds, Jones, Mostert, Courtney, the 10. Scott Pye just outside. And with one quick lap at the back end, Van Gisbergen up into 12th. A nice job by Jack Smith. And then looking further down, James Golding has got almost 3 seconds to find. So there must have been an issue there, and that was one of the cars that was battling early on. Andrew?
Tim Slade, these early sessions in a weekend are so important, aren't they? Great to roll out of the truck strong. Pretty solid start for you.
Yeah, we did that time on some tyres at the end there. So it was a difficult session, to be honest. Sort of struggling to see through the windscreen, as silly as it sounds, with some tear-offs. It seemed a lot milkier than usual. We had a long brake pedal and some splitter vibration, so it was all going on. But yeah, like I said, we chucked some tyres on in the end there, and it wasn't a fantastic lap. So yeah, I don't take massive confidence out of it. definitely feels a bit different to last year, and it's always tricky around here with the wind. So yeah, I guess we'll just keep working away and see what we can find in the next one.
That comment about it feeling different to last year, can you allude a little bit more to what that is? Is the circuit higher grip, obviously, with the lap time, but what else can you tell us that is different from last year?
I guess like traditionally, you know, on a new surface, I feel as though the rear really struggles to keep up with the front. There's still traits of that, but you know, not quite as bad as last year, and I guess that's probably why the lap times, well, from what we've heard, have been quicker. But yeah, it's still those traits, and around a place like this, yeah, it makes it pretty difficult to put a lap together.
Thanks, Tim.
Cheers, Tom.
Jack Smith, you're no stranger to these wildcards now, number 4 for the year, but I suppose a little bit different to you, going from Todd Hazelwood's car to your car for this session.
Yeah, it's the first time we've actually done the co-driver session in someone's car that's not my own, so it was good to back-to-back the cars for the first time, and you know, I don't think it went all that well in the co-driver session. We could have done better, but I think that session was a better one for us.
A nice strong session for you. You must be getting more and more confident as the year's going on.
Yeah, anyone would, I guess. More and more confident. I've been here before, but you know, confidence comes from results. So if I can get some better results, I'll be more confident.
Thanks, Jack. I might just quickly sneak over here if I can. Try get a chat to Tom Randall. Tom, sorry to interrupt, but your first wildcard session here in Supercars, you're debuting this weekend. Fantastic results so far.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, co-driver practice was really cool. I mean, we didn't have any green tyres on, and look, to get to the top of the charts in first time it's been on track in a race, in practice was fantastic. And yeah, that practice session was really good. I think we're running sort of top 5 there on the old tyres, and then we actually did a green run because just to give me more experience. And yeah, no, it went really well. I kind of had a massive inside front lock in a 6 and lost a bit of time, but no, it's just awesome to be here and to be out there with those guys. Felt really cool and just surreal. So yeah, awesome.
I can tell by the smile on your face you're enjoying yourself. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, thanks guys. Cheers.
I was just talking to Dave Reynolds off camera there just about this place and how difficult it is to get in tune with and just get your rhythm going. I reckon it's harder than Bathurst, isn't it?
I reckon so. You're the Bathurst king. You'd probably agree with that. But yeah, like this track, it's hard to get a rhythm. We haven't been here that many times, so to get yourself like in a good group so you can start, you know, focusing on your car is a bit difficult. Practice 1. I think practice 2 will be a bit easier for us.
Well, you just said that focus on the car or focus on driving. I mean, it's one of those things. Are you saying at the moment, after one session, are you actually driving the track as good as you could? Probably not.
No, probably not for a semi-professional bloke like myself. Yep. But you know, in the car I've got turn and oversteer, I've got understeer, I've got exit oversteer, I've got every problem known to man, but I can't fix one thing because it will always affect the other thing. So it's really, I'm going to have to pick my best strengths and weaknesses and just stick to it. Yeah,
should you focus on certain parts of the racetrack and not worry about the others at the moment? Like, I mean, you look at the really fast downhill right section that keeps going and going and going. Was it 8, 9, 10 or something through there? It's a lot of corners. I mean, is it worth focusing, trying to set a car up for that part of the racetrack, or focus on other areas?
Well, I've always believed, that fast stuff will just take care of itself, and we'll probably get more speed out of maximising the braking and all the slower stuff. So it is what it is. I'm going to have to talk to my engineer and see what we can come up with, because I didn't feel that good, but I don't know how anyone else was going out there.
I'm sure you'll go and work it out, mate, and tune the old girl up for the next one. See you soon.
No worries, mate. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
The old bastard.